Hello and welcome to the Talking Crit Livestream. If you're listening on the podcast, you're listening to Tavern Chat. And if you're listening live or you're listening later on YouTube, we ask that you like, subscribe to the channel. It helps.
Please like us.
Today, please like us. We're likable. With me today, as every Wednesday, I guess, as on every Wednesday, is none other than Bad Mike.
Hello. By the way, we have a pretty good streak going. I don't think we've missed a Wednesday in, well, definitely not this year.
Oh, yeah.
Because we were doing the show when I was on vacation in Padres, so I don't think we've missed a day since October.
Yeah, I think, I'll have to go back. I'm actually trying to, on the YouTube side, trying to put everything into, I don't know, channels or whatever, or subsections. So all the Talking Crits, and I have to go back to get the earlier Talking Crits and put them in the same, so then you can go, hey, let's do all the Talking Crits, and it's going to be in one nice little package for you. But I got to say, I'm very happy with this is the I think we added like 36 subscribers to the channel last 30 days. And
for the very little promotion we do, that's incredible.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good. And listen, we do appreciate it because, again, the live audience is what makes this as good as it is.
Yeah, I mean, Tenkar and I would sit here and he and I can talk for 3 hours about nothing.
We do at convention.
We've done it before. So we just assume you listen to us talk for 3 hours because you might find a tidbit of it interesting enough to say, yeah, they're right. Those guys are right.
Or about something, maybe occasionally.
Hello, David Thompson, David Betsick, and Epi. Our regulars. We got regulars. We have regulars now.
Yeah, we got two Davids and an Epi.
We have regulars, man. We're starting to get regulars. Of course, not like when we had Skeeter last week when we got all kinds of people, because Skeeter is he's like a god. I mean,
well,
people just come from everywhere to see him.
Skeeter looks like he should be a rock star. Not that he is. All right. It's just so everybody has that straight. Skeeter is not a rock star. No, but he has that look. Skeeter is a psycho, and he has that look. Yes. So,
can we schedule him let's just have every other week we'll just do a Skeeter show. We'll just Skeeter-centric show. Handle
it. Sooner or later, one of us is going to get violated. And
it's already happened. So, yeah, we don't need this again. We don't need that. We don't need this.
Chadzar from the Tavern's Discord server. Welcome. You see, yes. I remember names. I remember what people's are.
We're going to remember you. The guys that showed up when Skeeter's not here, we're remembering you. We're remembering the people that only showed up when Skeeter was here, and they're on my S list. Well, they need to be here every Wednesday night.
They got to be on somebody's list.
Special guest or not. I'm sorry.
Right. We have a couple of things that we want to go over today, and I'm sure the clowns in the audience, actually, our live viewers will take us off on tangents that we don't have planned. But I am going to touch on one piece of news right now, which affects publishers in the industry. I've discussed it already, but getting some feedback from Bad Mike and our live listeners is going to be important on this one. DriveThruRPG announced earlier this week they are discontinuing Saddle Stitch print-on-demand books as of March 1st. It's not their decision. They use Lightning Source for print-on-demand, and Lightning Source has decided it's just not a profitable format for them. So this is going to cause publishers, especially those who have a lot of smaller, shorter books, to lay things out anew for the new format. And I've spoken with more than one, but
I have an example here. So honestly, I didn't even prepare for this. I'm always unprepared. Here is an original copy of L1, The Secret of Bone Hill. This is saddle stitched, which that means is there is a staple in the center. As you can there's staples in the center. That is saddle stitched. Okay. And it's actually obviously detached. What they're going to start doing is everything's going to move to perfect bound. Here is a perfect bound This is actually. Well, I take it back. This is saddle stitch too. Oops. Okay, terrible example.
Mike,
Here we
Mike,
go. Here's perfect bound.
Critical fail. Critical fail.
Here's a perfect bound. G1 through 3. As you can see, it has a spine. There's no staple there. Boy, so maybe this would be valuable someday. This is staple stitched first. No. So yes. So what they're doing is they're getting rid of their staple in the middle, and they're doing everything perfect bound, which I assume is cheaper and easier for them to do. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it.
Right.
But it also, I mean, if you want that really old school feel, like when Tom Wilson and I published B 2.5 and X 1.5, we went old school all the way. We had the detachable cover. We did saddle stitch. We didn't want to do perfect bound because, let's face it, the early first edition stuff was not published perfect bound. The first perfect bound stuff started coming in second edition. That's when you started seeing perfect bound.
As Chad Sard points out, the complete series of books for 2E suffered from the problem of pages falling out because the glue was. I think I have. But here's the secret to my 2E series of complete handbooks. They weren't used, except for, I think, the Fighter's book. They weren't used to the point of falling apart because they just weren't that useful. So
here's a perfect bound T1 through 4. Oh, there's nothing on the cover, but here's a perfect bound. These are the reprints that DriveThru does. Right. So no staple. I mean, look, perfect bound is better than it was. Those second edition splat books were terrible. They were horrible, but perfect bound is much better now. Yes, every once in a while you'll get a bad batch, but I've had no problem with any of the perfect bound stuff I've bought from either Lulu or DriveThru. So I think the process is better now. But yeah, it's, as Eric will tell you, that it's causing a lot of consternation because if you have something formatted for saddle stitch, it is not just, you can't just push a button and say, okay, now I want it perfect bound. We're fine. That's not how it works. Right.
It's got to be laid out differently, especially if you were coming closer to that inner margin, because saddle stitch is more forgiving. Because you don't, you really open up right to, I'm like, right, I should put my hands up to people that are watching to see it. You open up right, that doesn't fucking even look right. But in any case, but when you got that perfect bound, it does this with the pages. It holds those pages,
right,
the binding very close together. So you lose a little page space. And,
it's more like a book. It's, I could probably, I mean, it's more, this is, as you can tell, this is a perfect bound T1 through 4. As you can see, you can't really get to the middle.
No,
there's a little area there you can't get to. However, if it's saddle stitch and you have the staple, you can lay it flat. You can lay the whole thing flat, and there's no problem because it's just a totally different format.
And I think with some of the print on demand perfect bound ones that you find from Woods of the Coast, the ones with the reprints, some of those books that were saddle stitch prior and are now you're getting in perfect bound, you're going to see they didn't do a new layout, and you're going to see the inner margin cuts very close, which is why publishers like Throwy Games, Tom Wilson, who I spoke with Tom, so shout out to Tom. Tom said he has over 40 titles that he's going to have relayed out, and I don't think anybody in their right mind. Well, maybe in the midst of COVID, maybe people have time to burn. Maybe people are laid off. But the average small publisher, publishing is their side gig. Mm-hmm. And to relay out 40 books that you initially laid out is not, because it isn't just as simple as, all right, well, I'll just shift the margins a quarter of an inch. You're going to shift those margins a quarter of an inch, which is going to cause a word to drop on the next line, and sooner or later, it's going to drop a whole line extra.
You got to lay the whole thing out. You got to redo the whole thing, and that's that. As you said, that's not an easy thing to do. That's a time suck especially for a lot of these guys like Tom that has 40 titles. I didn't realize he had that many titles.
40 plus titles.
That is a huge time suck.
Because most of what Tom does, if you read the Throwy Games releases, and they're awesome, is pretty much what we would call a zine these days. It's a zine format, and it's a zine format with a staple stitch. Now, is this going to probably help other printers out there? That some people, like maybe Phil Reed has his favorite printer for all his zines, but for those that are looking to have somebody like DriveThru. The sweet thing if you're a publisher and using DriveThru is you're not shipping. Okay, you're not paying somebody. Somebody goes to buy your product and you don't have to own it. And as the publisher, you don't have to store it. You don't have to ship it. It's all being done by somebody else on demand, and it makes it so easy. So this change is going to affect people.
Sure. Oh, definitely. And this has to be a cost saving measure, right? I mean, it has to be.
It's cost saving, not for DriveThru. Now, as Shazza points out, you have to think about signatures and gutters. Most that make PDFs for DriveThru are only formatted for staples, and the reason for that is literally the size of the product. You don't want something glued that's only, I don't know, 18, 20 pages, generally speaking. I mean, if you can get it stapled, the staples are going to be a stronger binding.
Mm-hmm.
Really.
Sure.
The problem, I think that the part of the problem with Perfect Bound is if you go too small, there's not enough glue there to hold your book together when you start pushing those pages apart. Maybe in the bigger books you can have that bend, but the smaller ones, you're going to have, 2 pages. And that.
Yeah, people probably know this better than I would, but there is definitely a page count where they recommend you don't perfect bound. And usually it's over, I think it's over 16. Like Shazar says, who wants perfect bound 32-page adventure? Yeah, I'm looking at some of the ones I have that I got from DriveThru. Here's the C1 through, this one's about 32 pages. It doesn't look bad, though. It's not bad. I don't think it's going to fall apart. But yeah, definitely don't. Something 16 pages, no, you don't want anything that small.
No, you want again, small perfect bound. The issue is there's literally less glue in that binding, and that's going to be an issue. But that spiral bound. Here's the problem with spiral bound. Places like Lightning Stores, I don't believe do spiral bound. So can you get spiral bound? Yes, a lot of times you can get it from your local printer. You can get it from a smaller printer, but spiral. Actually, some of my older Flying Buffalo adventures are spiral bound. They're nice because you can do a complete fold over.
Mm-hmm.
Very convenient as a gamer. However, the problem is they do take a lot of wear if you.
They don't store well either. I mean, especially if you're collecting it, they don't fit into plastic polyurethane envelopes very well. They don't stack in boxes very well. If you have a whole bunch of spiral bound stuff and then you have other things, they'll leave imprints. I've seen people have really good luck spiral bounding DM notes or game notes or like their own campaign world because, as Eric says, it makes it really easy to lay flat in the table than just flip the pages. But I wouldn't. I typically avoid spiral bound stuff when I can because it's just hard to store it. And I store most of my stuff. I'm a collector too, and I hate having to store spiral bound stuff.
I'm a collector, but I'm a horrible collector. People would cringe if they saw how I store my shit. But that's okay. I'm a collector who just wants to oogle at my stuff every once in a while.
This stuff behind me, this is not my personal collection. This is stuff I have for sale, so it's probably not stored as well as the stuff I have at home. As you can see on the top there, I just have a big pile of crap. But I still use the boxes, and everything's still in a plastic poly bag. And then a lot of stuff with the backing board too, especially smaller things. You don't want things to bend, so you put a backing board there. And I have a few things that are spiral bound. They're a pain in the ass. They really are.
David Thompson, when he was working for a printing company, he used to bind DM settings and campaigns into hardbacks. That is awesome. I mean, just the idea of having your stuff immortalized to some extent. But then again, my DM's notes and settings and shit, whatever I wrote, wouldn't have made much sense to anybody but me back in the day. And even now, when I go back and read my handwritten notes, half the time I go, I don't know what the fuck I was writing.
What was I doing? Was I
literally.
Was I drunk?
Well, listen, that was me. Legal drinking age was still 18 when I was 18, so it was probably not me sober. I can say that much.
Most of my stuff is computer, is on Word documents. So I think, but
yeah,
I still hate to read my old stuff. I think it reads terrible, but I think everybody thinks that probably.
Oh, and I know my old stuff reads terrible, but listen, when I was in college, I learned early on, because I was a procrastinator, so I used to take until the last moment to write my papers and my research assignments, usually that last weekend before they were due. And I learned a very important secret. This is back in the days, by the way, before computers.
Go out with a hot chick that can type up your notes for you?
No, I wish that was it. No, my secret was a brother word processor, which I borrowed from my sister, which had 2 lines. So at least I could catch some of my mistakes as I went. Because I never wrote a scratch copy. I always typed right through it. But you always had to have. You couldn't start writing until you had 4 beers in you, because you had to get nice. You had to get that nice buzz going, so you wouldn't stop that train of thought that would start. You just went with it. You just kept it going. And I think the worst grade I got in the paper was a B-, and I think that's the one.
It worked.
I was mostly sober on that one, because I ran out of beer and only had Zima. And if any of you are alive that remember Zima, the first Zima you have is actually pretty good. I mean, the first one you ever have is probably okay. And then after that, you wonder why you ever bought it. And then you have a refrigerator with like 5 left of a 6-pack. And you're going, I need to get my buzz on, but it's just probably.
So let me tell you the worst procrastinating college story ever. So I was able at one point I could sit down in front of the typewriter, and this, of course, we're talking about the 80s, 90s here, and just type something out. It'd be done. And I would wait till the last minute. I'd do it the night before. That's how good a writer I used to be. I could do that. And I'd stare at my notes, type, and then, because you couldn't retype. I mean, it's not like a computer where you go in and fit stuff in there. No, you had to type it and I would write the whole thing out and type it. And I got really good at it, but it was a bad habit because I would procrastinate and do it the night before it was due. Right. So graduate school one year, not even just regular college, graduate school, I'm sitting there typing along, and I hear a pop, and smoke starts coming out of my typewriter. And my typewriter has died. Now we're talking, this is the early 90s. There's no internet. Right. I mean, there's no, I'm sitting there. I don't have a typewriter. I got to finish typing. This thing's due the next night because I had night classes. So it's due Monday night. So I basically stayed up all night looking up places that would fix the typewriter. Finally found one. They could do it, but it wouldn't be ready that day. So I went up. This is crazy. So I had a friend that worked in an office nearby. She snuck me into her office. I went to the back of the office where there was like a bunch of cubicles. It was a cubicle. It was a cube farm. So I was able to sneak into her cube farm. And I mean, I was like, look, I'll do anything, whatever it takes, because I have got to get this thing typed up. It's due tomorrow night. And so she snuck me into the cube farm. I went all the way in the back, used one of the office typewriters, and just typed it so quietly, trying to, because people would come by and kind of look at me like, who's that guy? Does he work here? And I dressed up. I had a suit. I mean, I tried to look like I was working there, and it was a savings and loan. Luckily, nobody noticed this strange guy in the back typing up his term paper. I don't think anybody talked to me. And so I was able to get it out, but that's the last time I ever procrastinated on a paper, because that scared the water out of me. Because graduate school is not like regular college. You either do the work or you're out. I mean, they don't they don't like care. Excuses. They don't like whatever. You had a week to do it, but there's no excuse. Your typewriter blew up tough. You should have started 5 days ago. So they didn't care in graduate school. But that was a rough 24 hours. I think I treated myself to many not Zima, but something else. Probably straight
many adult beverages.
Many adult beverages after I turned that in. That was absolutely frightening, and that was the last time I ever procrastinated when I came to write a paper. But I was like you, Eric. Like I said, I'd just sit down. I'd take a caffeine pill or something, just boom, and I would be done in 5 or 6 hours. And
I worked very, very well under the pressure. And back then, you had a limited number of mistakes you could have per page. before they deducted points.
Yeah,
Because
it was 3 for it was 3 with us. Yeah, we had 3. You could do 3
okay.
3 mistakes a page. That was it. After that, you got big red marks.
I think for us it was 4 mistakes a page, or 8 if you actually made hand corrections to correct them. But it was 4 uncaught mistakes. But if you caught your mistakes and you hand corrected,
we had
you
something
could get away
kind of
with
like
more.
that. Yeah.
Chad was like, dot matrix printers were loud. I can up you one. I had a Coleco motherfucking Atom, and that was a daisy wheel printer.
Oh boy!
Which oh my god, it was. You'd wake up
the neighbors. Yeah, I had one of those. Yeah,
you could not really print with that effectively, but yeah, no. So okay, this is going to be a problem with publishers. Now, here's the thought. If you are a consumer, meaning if you are somebody who has a bunch of stuff that you've been looking at and say, I'll get it later, you might want to get it now. You might want to get the stuff that it's going to be in Saddle Stitch. If you want to go to 30 games and start getting a lot of Tom shit, now is the time to do it, because what's going to happen is it's going to get brought down initially.
Yeah, Tom's stuff is really good too. It's worth buying. It's just worth it. And especially since he's going to pull a lot of it until he redoes it, it may or may not be available for a long time. I would go buy a bunch of Throwy Game stuff. Plus, his stuff is always it's all good. He doesn't have any bad stuff in there.
Yeah, no, it's all spot on. His I'm not sure if his Gamma World stuff is up on DriveThru, but if it is, definitely grab it. Oh
yeah, his Gamma World stuff is very good. It's not. He has some stuff. It's I guess it's more post-apocalyptic, but it very much fits in with Gamma World, and it's really good stuff. He does a really, really good job with it.
Yeah.
Hey, Kim! I just saw Kim said hello. Hello, Kim.
Oh my god! The chat's moving so quickly. I missed it.
She snuck in. Oh, by the way, let me share one personal note here, and this is a follow-up to something I had talked about during November when I had mentioned what a fat ass I was and how much weight I'd gained, and just I was having trouble walking because my back hurt and I was walking on the beach every day. Well, tonight, drum roll please, I had my first workout since March of 2020.
Woohoo!
All the workout places are open here in Texas. They have distancing, they have masks, they clean the equipment. And so I joined my wife and did an hour workout, 15 minutes biking, 15 minutes lifting, 30 minutes treadmill, and I feel pretty damn good. I don't feel too bad. Back doesn't hurt. So I'm on my way, guys. I have got to lose some major poundage. And so, but yeah, I'm very happy the state of Texas reopened the workout, because once they closed the gyms, I sat there.
It was a perfect excuse. It's like,
oh god, just gained weight like ridiculous.
You don't need me. And folks, listen, real easy thing here. All you got to do to start improving your health is to literally start improving your health. You just got to take that first step. Listen. I've bitched and complained about how I thought it was being shaken down at one point from somebody that was kind of borderline in our gaming community, who was pushing away to get geeks into shape. But he did bring up one interesting thing. He was talking about video game systems, specifically the Nintendo Switch. So I did a little research, and you know what? The Nintendo Switch, kind of like the Nintendo Wii, has games that detect your motion. And I've been using, I think it's Fitness Boxing 2, Rhythm and...
nice. Yeah, there you go.
It has been a godsend, because I'm not going out walking. And, you can only do an exercise bike so often. And the exercise bike is only working your legs. This works.
Yeah.
The first time they had me doing ducks, I thought my legs were going to fall off afterwards. I couldn't... Here's gonna be your TMI. When I had to go to the bathroom, I used to have to use the door frame to lower myself down, because that's how hard my hips were hurting for 2 days. But I've gotten beyond it. So hopefully, Mike, you don't get that problem.
I'm hoping not either. I don't need poo-poo problems, but
no.
Yeah, I'm happy I did it, and hopefully this the beginning of me going. I was, at one point a couple of years ago, I was going every night for an hour, every day or every night for an hour, and I really had it going on pretty well. And I just got out of the habit, as we'll do, and I just gotten back in last year, and then COVID came, and I got right back out, and it was so easy to get back out. And even though I have an exercise bike at the house, I'm not I don't think bikes don't do a lot for me. I mean, I like to keep my legs moving, but as you said, they're really only good for your legs and your thought.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't really do anything for your upper body or really, even for me, I never ride them enough to where I'm really breathing heavy and, just pouring sweat.
And that's the thing. I will ride them to the point where it's painful, but I'll be looking at my pulse on my Apple Watch, and I'll be going, oh, okay, 96, 97. With the fitness boxing, I'm getting my pulse up to 110, 115, 118.
Oh, that's
and
great.
I'm just like, yeah, because, I mean, especially in my case, congestive heart failure, I need to exercise my heart, strengthen my heart without overwhelming it, of course. So which is why, I'm like, it's like I could do a 50-minute workout, but then you'll probably take me out in a stretcher. But I'm doing 20 or 30-minute workouts, and I'm watching my heart rate when I'm doing it. And I was like, oh, wait, I'm knocking on 120. Pause it. Let me get back down to like 102, 103, and then I'll jump back in. That's
right.
Yeah, computer chips have built-in bikes. I tried these a stepper that connected to your chair, and let me tell you, it worked like shit. So
I didn't mean to derail here. I just was really
no.
I was really happy that I finally went and did it. I've been putting it off, and I said, I got my wife's. She's a workout warrior, and she's like, you got to do this. You got to get back in shape. And so I did, and I'm surprisingly not hurting. I'm sure I will hurt tomorrow because maybe the adrenaline kept me going. I don't know. I was able to keep. My problem when I work out is I get bored really easily. Right. If I have something to keep my interest, that usually means bringing my tablet, and especially when I'm on the treadmill, I'll fiddle with my tablet or I'll watch television. They have all the workout places have televisions now, hanging up on the wall. If I find something that interests me, I'm okay. But if I get bored, man, I will not do a good workout. I just won't do it. I won't walk fast enough. I'll keep looking at my watch saying, okay, when am I going to be through? But I was able to keep my interest pretty well tonight. I was really impressed with the gym. They had every other machine blocked off. There was Purcell and Germex everywhere you could use. They had somebody, as soon as somebody got off a clean machine, they cleaned the machine. And everybody had masks on, Masterman try. I felt pretty good there. And usually I haven't been one to be around big crowds of people since COVID started. So,
well, hey, Bob is putting this hex crawl back on target. He got his Lost City of Gaxmore. I'm assuming that's the 5e version yesterday, and wants feedback from us, good, bad. Well, you know what? I saw the Kickstarter back when I got Kickstarted, and I have the CNC version of Gaxmore, I believe it's the CNC version, sitting on my bookshelf. And I don't play 5e, although I've bought some 5e stuff with the intention of converting it to Swords and Wizardry. Having something I can already pretty much use with Swords and Wizardry as a 5e version, I couldn't pull the trigger on it. And it's not that the trolls aren't worth the money. They put out some very good stuff. And they are literally going to be the saviors of one of the bigger Kickstarters in our hobby, the Dungeon Hobby Shop Dungeon. But
well, look, I love Ernie and I love Luke and I love the trolls, but a mark of maturity is it's like Clint Eastwood said in the second Dirty Harry movie, a man's got to know his limitations. And I have this point in my life, I've realized my limitations. There's no use buying something for 5e I'm not going to play because I don't play 5e. Yep. If I do spend my money, it'll be on an OSR release. It'll be something Labyrinth Lord, Swords and Wizardry, something old school. Nothing against 5e. I just don't play it. And at this point, I'm realizing that there's no point in buying it because I'm not going to convert it. I'm not. I don't have time to convert 5e when there's literally hundreds, if not there might be thousands, I don't know, of items out there that I still have never played yet that are written for OSR and old school. I mean, so
Yes.
it would have been cool to get and look at, but I'm much more likely to play, let's say, Dungeon Hobby Shop, like you were saying, which I have the PDF of now, or something of that ilk. So I've just had to forego 5e Kickstarters. As much as I want to support my friends that do 5e Kickstarters, I know Lloyd does some. I know some other friends of ours. I'm just never going to play it. I'm just not.
And again, here's the thing. When 5e first came out, did I buy the core books? Of course. I bought the core books of 4e. All right. And even then I was kind of like, oh boy. I saw the danger there. But I bought the core books. I bought the initial adventures. That was the Dragon Horde. I think I bought the first 2 or 3 adventures that were put out for 5e before realizing that I'm never going to play 5e. So why? You gotta. When you've backed, I have to look behind my shoulder, make sure Rachel isn't behind me. When you've backed well over 400 Kickstarters, you have to start drawing lines. Okay, you got to start saying, "All right, it sounds good, but I can't, man. I can't do it." Because it's like, again, else in my case, I got limited space now. I shouldn't say that. I've always had limited space, and I just never cared. But now I'm getting to the point where it's like I can only stack so much on the floor. Something's got to give, so I can. Sure. I can't limit myself now to either things that I will definitely play, or could conceivably play, assuming I had a limited time to game, which I don't. But I would not play 5e even with unlimited time to play. Maybe as a player, but I certainly wouldn't invest the time as a DM.
Oh yeah, I'm with you. I mean, if there's a 5e game going somewhere and some friends of mine are playing, I would sit down and play a 5e game. But there's just no point in getting material written for 5e. I mean, I have, Treasure the Dragon Horde. Some of the first things WotC released for 5e. I had it because Steve Winter wrote, Wolfgang Barr wrote. I mean, some of my friends wrote them, so I bought them. But I'm never going to play them. I've barely read through them. It's just, there's just so much material out there now. I mean, there's just such a depth of material that right now we're still running through Greg Gillespie's Highfell, and we're on session. We just did session 16. I mean, we probably got another year of play out of that, And so, I mean, there's just no point in buying a lot of 5e stuff anymore. But nothing, like I said, nothing against the Troll Lords or the Gygaxes or anybody. It's just that there's
even
a lot of stuff out there. No,
Frog Guy puts out stuff in 5e, and if it's only in 5e, I don't generally pick it up. Right. If it's out there in Swords and Wizardry, I'm on it like a pig on mud. I mean, I just can't help it because I enjoy it. So it depends. Again, are you going to use it? Are you going to read it? And I said, I'm not going to use it. All right, well, am I going to read it? I got so much other stuff for the OSR that I have not read. So how am I going to spend money on stuff for a game system that I'm not going to play?
Sure.
And then not going to read?
I'm with you. So. I'm with you.
But now there's kind of a tie-in to something else that we wanted to bring up, and that is the Pathfinder for Savage Worlds Kickstarter, and this is an interesting one. And I'm going to say it launched yesterday with a goal of 8,000. And by the way, certain goals are just bullshit. They well knew that they were going to blow past 8,000 probably in 8 minutes. But they've raised over 202,000 with over 1,200 backers. So the average backer is backing for about $150. Think about that. 26 days to go, but the average backer has backed for approximately $150. Amazing.
Now, what's the? I think that we talked about this a little bit. What's the minimum and the average buy-ins for this? This
all right. Well,
it's high price, right? I mean, it's not.
Well, your minimum digital buy-in is $25. And
Okay, that's not bad. Probably what for
and that
PDF, right? A PDF of it.
PDF.
Yeah.
And it gives you the core book. Now, the reason why there's a core book is that there's a core book that basically takes the Savage World rules, and I've played Savage Worlds a handful of times. It's a good system, and I would probably go with Savage Worlds over GURPS if I was trying to find like a universal system, because I think it's even though it's more, I don't want to say gamey because it sounds bad, but even though it is less simulationist, it is an easier system to grasp, I think. But it's $25 to get the player's version of digital, just the core book and some archetype cards and some other crap. $50 for the GM digital, which includes the core book, the bestiary, the GM book, and some other, I don't want to say random stuff in PDF, but kind of random stuff. $50 for the player's print, which means your core book in print and archetype cards in print, and then everything else that you would have gotten in the digital players in PDF. Probably not a bad buy-in if all you're going to do is be a player. Now, this is where it gets strange, because now they start calling things different. Rune Lord. Rune Lord is the digital version, in this case, of the Pathfinder Savage Worlds rules. Pathfinder for Savage Worlds. Again, this is basically fantasy RPG rules for the Savage Worlds, but it allows you to replicate classes using, dare I say it, skills and powers. Wrong terminology, but that's the 2E in me, I guess. And it includes the Rise of the Rune Lords Adventure Path. If you're going to be a DM, this is probably where you got to step in. And apparently it is where people start really stepping in, because there's 326 backers. Game Master in print without, again, the adventure, but core book and the bestiary in print, and other stuff and PDFs of that. That's $100. Ultimate box set. Core rules, bestiary, GM screen adventure, archetype cards, poster map, poster cards, status cards, templates and tokens, dice, bennies, action deck, power dials, in a sturdy, beautiful box. $200. That's not including shipping. So now you can see when you start looking at this and you go, all right, there's 79 backers for that. Where are all these backers coming in at? And I'm going to tell you, $300 is Rune Lord, where it's 2 boxes. It's the ultimate box set with all the rules. It's the Rise of the Rune Lords box set, which is the Rune Lord books for the adventure in their own box. PDFs, all the above, 441 backers.
Wow.
So that by itself,
there's your 12,000.
Wow, that's $140,000.
Wow.
Right there are for people who go, give me all that shit. And here's the issue. I think it looks really cool. And I think Rise of the Rune Lords, I have it for Pathfinder. I read it back in the day. This is back when I kind of thought maybe I'll run Pathfinder. And it's good. It's a good adventure. Am I ever going to play it with Savage Worlds? No. Is it a cool Kickstarter back? Most certainly. Are there better ways for me to spend $300 plus shipping?
There always are. Yeah.
Most assuredly. Now, I'm not saying I don't throw my money away at times, but even when I do, I can use it like, yeah, Rach, I got a new tablet. You got a new iPad? Didn't you? Well, I got a new iPad, but you're going to get my old new iPad. I'm not stupid. We call it the Tenkar Family Recycling Program.
There you go. Perfect.
I can pretty much get anything in electronics because I can pass it on to somebody else, and everybody goes, oh, I won. Nobody goes, you wasted fucking money again? No. They go, I got something pretty awesome. Nobody is getting a hand-me-down if I order this. And I can tell you right now, if I order this, it's going right to my shelf.
And you're probably never going to open it or read it, and might flip through it once or twice.
Now,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Eric. I had something to add when you're through. Well, I was just going to say, we talked about this a little bit in the show our or what we laughably call our pre-show meeting. And so I have a theory about this. This has gotten more prevalent in the last few years. Is these companies are really relying on these, I don't know what you call them, premier backers.
Yes.
These people that are willing to drop $200, $300, $400, $500. I mean, look at some of the Kickstarters out there that the whole Kickstarter is built around these premier backers. These guys, I guess that, you call them whales. These guys are going to sit there and they're going to drop a huge amount of money. They may never play it. You know what? Paizo doesn't care if they play it or not. They want the money from these guys. And so this is something I've noticed that's becoming more prevalent as these Kickstarters want to make more and more money. They are catering to this upper level premier type buyer. And if you look at, and I was talking to Eric about this, look, COVID was not a good deal for our economy.
No.
But you know what? I hate to say it, but people that were making six figures before COVID are making six figures now. They were still making six figures. COVID hurt the lower class worker, the people who were working 2 or 3 jobs, a lot of service industry type jobs, even though service industry jobs were considered quote unquote essential. One of my best friends, she's an architect. She lost a 6-figure job. But for the most part, people that had money before COVID still have money, and they're willing to spend money. I can say that for a certainty by looking at what this Kickstarter's done. Look how much money this Kickstarter has brought in already. So it's going to be interesting to see Kickstarters in the future if they keep really catering to this premier buyer. And we saw a little bit of this with Beetle and Grimm. For those who don't know, Beetle and Grimm is a company. Matt Izzard is part owner of it. The actor, and he also plays D&D. Basically, they issue very upscale maps and books, and they do like it's really high quality stuff. It's stuff that you're not going to really even use to play around the table. You just buy it. It's what they call aspirational purchases. You buy it and it looks really cool, and you're going to put it on your shelf, like Eric says, and it looks awesome. Beetle and Grimm did some maps for a Frog God product a couple years ago, the Sea King's Malice. They did some ship maps that were gorgeous maps. But WotC does a lot of Beetle and Grimm stuff, and that's what all Beetle and Grimm is. All Beetle and Grimm is they're issuing really high quality items for the Uber collector, for somebody that just wants something that regular people just can't afford. And some of these add-ons are $500, even $1,000 for these add-ons, just to be able to tell people, look, you got the whatever version of, Against the Giants. My version of Against the Giants has this, and this, plus, life-size maps, the Steeding of the Hill Giant, and, plus a tooth from the Giants mouth. I mean, it has all this extra stuff. This is going to be interesting to see how this goes in the future, because I don't think they're ever going to price out the 20. I mean, you said they had a $25 option, right? That's for the PDF.
Right.
So anybody that wants it can get a $25 option if they just want the basic, the basic stuff,
right? But, very basic.
But the nicer stuff is going to I think it's going to be going up and up. And I think a lot of us are going to be on the outside looking in when it comes to buying some of this stuff, because we're not willing. I know collectors that think nothing about dropping $500 on a Kickstarter, for something they really like. But for the average rank and file fan, that it's ludicrous. It doesn't make any sense. It's like buying. Look, I would love to have a set of dice made out of a meteor. I'm not going to pay $1,000 for it. It'd be awesome.
You might actually use that, though. I will never
That's true. Well, I don't think I can roll it, because if they cost $1,000, I'm not going to be rolling on the table.
Oh, I will. Remember, I'm the one who ripped the wrapper off a sealed copy of whatchamacallit, Empire of the Pearl Throne. But here, and listen, Shadzar makes a point, but I'm going to rebut it. And he was like, people are going off on Kickstarter for allowing companies to take money from little people. And, Paizo is a company, Steve Jackson, yes, but here's the issue. And this is the new reality of publishing. Your margins are small, okay? Your margins are really small, and they're even smaller if you have actually made it out to the mass market and you're actually in distribution, which Paizo is and Steve Jackson Games is. So you're making a lot less per copy off of what you're selling to the quote hobby distributor. And when you don't know how much of a product that you need, you could be stuck in a situation like TSR at the end of its days, which pulped probably millions of dollars worth of cover price product because they were returns and they had nothing. They basically they overprinted and they undersold. The reality of Kickstarter is if you are an established company and you will deliver, yes, it's probably the equivalent of a pre-order. However, your people, your backers know they're going to get something. They know you're not going to do a Ken Whitman or a Gareth Sharka and take the money, wipe their ass with it, and go off in the wind. All right? They know they're going to get something for the money. So it's not an investment. It really is a pre-order.
Mhm.
For the publishers, though, it means that they can go, okay, well, hypothetically, we got 4,000 backers for the new Pathfinder for Savage Worlds Kickstarter. We can safely print 7,000 copies of the game for the first print, and no, we sold 4,000, and we can assume that we can sell 3,000 fairly easily by word of mouth once it gets out there in the market. But if they would, you think they would have published 7,000 copies without having money in hand? First off, they might not have had the money in hand to develop it. So this is all stuff that when your margins are small, and if you think Pathfinder is big, word has it that a couple of years ago, Pathfinder was actually making payroll because Lisa Stevens was cutting checks because she personally had the money, but the company didn't.
Right.
All right. It's not a rumor I can confirm, but it's a rumor that from sources that I took to be pretty trustworthy in that source. So that's how close some of these margins are. In the case of Paizo, they probably lost a lot of money on the MMO that was a fucking money sink. But TS and yes, Wizards of the Coast, thinking TSR, but Wizards of the Coast has Big Daddy Hasbro, right? So they can afford not to kickstart stuff. But when you got companies like Steve Jackson Games, they might be a big player, but in the worldwide hobby, they are shit. You think that they're publishing on the size of some of these Eurogame publishers? No. On a level of Hasbro? No. They are still a small company, so they have to. Their margins are close. And Steve Jackson has projects like probably Car Wars, his recent Car Wars one, which I doubt that he made much money on, but it was a passion for him to do. He has enough money that he can, but with Kickstarter, he knows he's not going to lose money on it.
Yeah.
Might not make much, but Kickstarter can at least establish that you won't lose money if you have a business sense. You can
by the way, he's confirmed that he lost money on the ogre sets, which that spiraled out of control.
No,
but it's a beautiful set. Oh, it's beautiful.
That was an aspirational purchase on my side. It's still sitting on a shelf. And listen, post-COVID, anybody in the New York City area who wants to buy it for $200, post-COVID, when we can shake hands, and I'll give it for $200, maybe less. Just to clear out, you know how much fucking shelf space that takes up that can be used for other books? I mean, it's huge. I'll never play it. You would literally need a convention space, a whole convention room put aside to play that.
We have a North Texas copy that we have put together all the models, Doug and I, and we pulled out a couple years ago and played a big fun game of it. But yeah, it's a monster, man. It is gigantic. Robert, I want to say real quick, any updates with Frogger Games releasing the Necropolis update? I just talked to Mr. Mark Greenberg last night, and he is working on it even as we speak. It will be, but he is telling me that he's having to rewrite it from the ground up because when it was written, so a little bit of history. I'm sorry to derail our conversation, but
no, there's never derail.
Yeah, that's right. We're hex crawling. I forgot a little bit of history. So when Gary formed his own company, Dangerous Journeys, he came out with a mega dungeon called Necropolis for his system. Now, hardly anybody bought it or played it because nobody bought or played Dangerous Journeys. It was extremely difficult to understand and figure out how to do things.
Oh, Jesus Christ! Yes.
Interesting setting with some interesting ideas, but it was just overcomplicated. So we had this killer dungeon, and by being killer dungeon, I mean a killer dungeon. It made Tomb of Horrors look like a cakewalk, called Necropolis. It's basically an expedition into an Egyptian tomb. So years later, after Lorraine Williams had sued Dangerous Journeys and it went out, and all this stuff happened, he still owned the rights to it. I sold the rights to Necromancer Games in, I think, 2002, 2003. Necromancer Games came out with a 3.0, 3.5, whatever version of it. And there it sat for the last almost 20 years. Well, Frogger Games owns the rights to it. So it's not a question. Gale has no say in this whatsoever. This was bought. I mean, Necromancer Games bought the rights to this, and we still own the rights to it. We have lawyers on our staff. How shall we say it? That have told us that yes, we have the rights to these still. So we're reprinting it for 5th edition, but it was I don't know how to say it. It was not necessarily the best dungeon design. It was Gary was trying to do something with this, and I think he was trying to outdo Tomb of Horrors, and so he thought he's just going to just pull all the stops out. There's some traps in this adventure that are unsolvable and immediately TPK. There's no way to survive it. There's absolutely no way to survive it. You will 100% get TPK. As an example, there is a spot you go to where there's, I think it's like 30 icons on a wall. If you press any but the right icon, you immediately die, no saving throw. And there's no indication about what it basically tells you in the press icons till you hit the right one. There's nothing can help you do it. So I mean, there's stuff like that in there. God bless Mark Greenberg. He's having to deal with this and go through this and try to rewrite it to where it makes some kind of internal sense, to where it's not just a TPK waiting to happen for your party, where at least there's a chance you might survive some of this. So long story short, yes, we're working on the 5th edition version of Necropolis. Hopefully later this year, not sure, but Mark is hard at work on it and having to almost rewrite it from the ground up, because another thing is Gary wrote it. I don't know who edited it, but I remember buying the original version and giving up about halfway through because I couldn't make heads or tails of it. And a lot of it was because it was written for Dangerous Journeys, and I just didn't know the rules set. I didn't understand what this reference meant or that did. And then I also bought, when Necromancer Games came out their version, I bought that version, and I did the same thing. I gave up about halfway through, mostly because I didn't play 3.0, 3.5. I didn't understand what the stats were. It's a very dense adventure, very complicated. So it's going to require a lot of skilled editing and rewriting for it to come out.
A lot of massaging.
Yes, a lot of massaging. But Mark Greenberg is just the guy to massage it, and we'll eventually see publication. But thanks for bringing that up, Robert. That got me to pontificate on that. The history of Dangerous Journeys is really interesting for those who don't know. If you ever have a chance, if you can find, there's probably some online articles written about it. It's really a sad story because it really spelled the end for GDW, which is a company that put out Traveler. They put out Twilight 2000, because they were wrongfully sued by Lorraine Williams, and because she said the game resembled Dungeons and Dragons too much, which it didn't.
But here's the problem: what was it initially called?
I can't remember.
Dangerous Dimensions.
Dangerous Dimensions. So D&D. That's right.
Yes, and I think that's where she initially went off on it, because I have my copy, and my original copy is by the way,
for what I understand too, TSR did not win their case. That they had to write a check to both Frank Mentzer and Gary, but they accomplished their goal, which was to basically put GDW out of business and put Dangerous Journeys out of business. Because at that point, nobody would touch Dangerous Journeys anymore. Nobody's willing to go out of business to be revenge sued by Lorraine Williams, because she was just trying to prove a point that you're not going to work in this town ever again, type of thing. But they lost their case, but it was too late. Too late to help anybody, I guess, like I said, Gary and Frank and a few others got a check cut to them, but that's not really recompense for what they lost, which is the company
No.
and the whole game system. But it's interesting. It's an interesting side thing in the hobby, and then after that, Gary just really didn't publish anything till finally went with the Troll Lords, and by this time he'd kissed and made up with Watsy, who'd bought out TSR because Peter Atkinson and them, they loved Gary, and so they're like, yeah, we don't care, you can publish whatever you want, because there was a rumor for a long time a lot of these ex-TSR guys were blacklisted in the hobby. I know some will insist it's true. They would absolutely insist they were blacklisted, that if they had tried to publish anywhere, they would have been shut down just because of the vindictiveness of Lorraine. But by the time that Watsy bought TSR, that had all, Watsy didn't have anything against Gary. And so Gary was able to go publish his Legendary Adventures with Troll Lord Games. And that's what the system he was working on, that and Castle Crusades. When he passed away, he had done Castles a Gig, Town of Eggsburg, some other stuff for Castles Crusades. So he was able to finally start publishing again. It's really sad that he passed away when he did, because there was a lot of plans going forward. The box set that was released, Cast as a Gig, is called The Upper Levels, because they didn't even get a chance to do the lower levels. There was supposed to be a whole series of box sets detailing Castle as a Gig, which is another way of saying Castle Greyhawk, basically.
Or Castle Gygax.
Yeah,
spelled backwards.
Well, it was supposed to be Castle. It was basically his notes for Castle Greyhawk.
So now, taking a quick step back, Shadzar wants to know, why are the companies using Kickstarter instead of their own company websites for pre-orders, much like Hasbro did with HeroQuest? And that answer is actually pretty simple. Kickstarter isn't just a way to do, isn't just a platform for kickstarting a project. It's a social media platform. It is advertisement. And as a publisher, it is free. Hasbro didn't need it. Hasbro was already has a huge market share. And once word of mouth came out that HeroQuest was being put out, boom. And the thing is, Kickstarter takes a share of the sales. If you could, trust me, I'm sure of companies like Steve Jackson Games and Paizo could effectively do pre-orders and do the same sales or nearly the same sales that they can do on Kickstarter, they would do so because they don't have to give Kickstarter a percentage of the sales, because it costs money to Kickstart stuff of the money that you gross. There's money taken out. Okay. And I'm sure Hasbro, they have one of their suits do the like, well, if we Kickstart it, you might do A, but we're going to do damn close on our own and not have to give them $300,000 for their cut or whatever the hell it was. So that certainly is part of it. Mike, please continue, because I got to go through all these. I got to go through comments up my ass, Scott.
And how about them Dallas Mavericks and Luka? No,
Jesus.
no.
Talk about sports.
No sports. How about that Tom Brady, man? 43 years old, going to the NFC Championship. Okay, I'm just kidding.
Actually, the Tom Brady thing. Tom Brady amazes me that somebody and I'm 53, so I'm 10 years older.
Look, he is the greatest football player of all time. I hate the guy because I've never been a big fan of the Patriots. It doesn't matter. The dude.
I hate the Patriots. I always respect it.
He is the greatest of all time. Brady. There is no. Somebody had a stat. Okay, I know everybody wants to talk sports. Let me explain something to you. This man who is playing is the greatest quarterback of all time. He's better than Joe Montana. He is. Somebody brought this stat up. He's played for over 20 years in the NFL. The worst record a Tom Brady team ever had was 9-7. The man has never had a losing record in 20-something years. It's ridiculous. You know who's played the most who's won the most playoff games of all time? Second place is Joe Montana with 16. You know how many Tom Brady has? 32. 43. No, he's 32. He has double what Montana has. It's insane. So if you get a chance, I don't care if you're a Pack fan or what, watch the NFC Championship this year and realize you're watching two Hall of Famers with Brady and Rodgers, and just be thankful you lived during this time, because the guy, it's just ridiculous. ridiculous. The guy is absolute machine, and he's 43 years old, and he's still playing next year. He hasn't said he's not gonna play next year. He's playing next year. The guy, it's crazy. It's nuts. But that's our sports. Are dipping our toe into the sports world right there. But
it's not like Phil Necro, the knuckleball pitcher who was pitched to like he was nearly 50 because he was throwing balls at like 40 miles per hour. Tom Brady is still getting hit and smacked around. God bless him. Again,
I hate to say I hate the Pack, but I don't like Tom Brady. But man, wouldn't it be something if Tom Brady won and went to the Super Bowl this year for the NFC? I mean, that's just nuts. That guy's nuts.
Oh, hey, are they actually going to have fans in the stands for the Super Bowl?
Yes, because they had fans in the stands for the playoff games last week. I saw that the Packers actually finally allowed people in the stadium because they didn't have anybody for any of the regular games, I don't think, all year long. They finally allowed people there, which is nuts. But,
I heard that Buffalo that you actually had to get COVID tested at the stadium with the quick test.
That makes sense. I mean, that's
so you have to wait 15 minutes and like, all right, yeah, you can go. Nope.
Oh, that'd be awful. You spend money. You spend money to buy playoff tickets. You're like, sorry, man. Your rest of your family can stay, but you're out. You're like, you got to be kidding.
See, that's when you need like the people looking for scalpers. You can. I'll buy your ticket. Yo, man, I'll buy your ticket. Yo.
And by the way,
I got my COVID.
The Bills are playing the Chiefs. I'm a huge Bills fan this year because I feel sorry for them because the Cowboys waxed their ass twice in the 90s, just absolutely destroyed them. And they lost. This team lost 4 Super Bowls in a row. I feel bad for Bills fans. They're finally back. They have a great quarterback. I'm kind of pulling for the Bills this year.
The Bills fans. I'm in New York City.
I figured you'd say that because you're a New York City guy. So yeah,
and I'm a Jets fan. So I mean.
Yeah.
I don't know what the equivalent is for a team that you love but will never win a fucking game over in jolly old England. But if any of our English sisters want to put in the chat, you can tell me what's a team that you love that is perpetually losing. Where a season where they break even is like, holy shit.
The New York Knicks? Oh wait, they're just as bad as the Jets. I'm sorry. The Knicks are just as bad. The Knicks had some good years, though. Well, the Jets went to the Super Bowl in '68. Come on, man. It hasn't been that long, has it? It was Broadway Joe's year. Oh, my God. That is sad. Yeah, the poor Jets. That is, if you're a suffering fan, because, man, they have just had one. Oh, that's just a mess.
When you look lonely back at the Vinny Testaverde days.
Hey, by the way, Testaverde finally got a ring when he was with the Cowboys. He was our backup one year.
Hey, he deserved it.
Yeah.
The problem is that the Jets can't have more than one skilled player at a time, and because
they're in the biggest market in the United States. How do they have such a collection of losers every freaking year? It has to be managed, right? Is their manager? I don't know much about the Jets. I just know they're terrible every year. So.
Well, listen, the Mets were like that for the longest time too. I live in Queens. I'm supposed to be a Mets fan because they're out in Shea Stadium, out in Flushing, part of Queens. But I'm always a Yankees fan, and I always rooted for the Yankees, except for the Subway Series.
Yeah.
And I was working in the South Bronx. I was a cop in the South Bronx. I had to work the details, and I wanted the Yankees to get the fuck out of the series. I wanted them to fucking lose. I was tired of working fucking all the time. That's the only time I didn't like the Yankees is when I was working in the South Bronx.
And unfortunately, I think they waxed the Mets. Didn't they sweep them? I can't remember.
I believe so. Maybe 4-1.
Sorry for a little sports interlude there. I just think it's hilarious and that Tom Brady at 43 is playing such a high. Like I said, if you like anything about football, watch the NFC Championship game. You're going to see 2 Hall of Famers. And you're going to see literally the greatest player of all time that you'll ever see in your lifetime, which is Tom Brady, whether you like him or not. And you're going to see one of the best quarterbacks of all time, Aaron Rodgers, I hate the Packers. God, I hate them I still say to this day, they cheated in the Ice Bowl. They absolutely fucking cheated, and the Cowboys should have been in the Super Bowl that year, but we'll just let that aside. But yeah, those are two great quarterbacks. God, it's going to be a great game. I hope. So
listen. I haven't watched. This is my 2020-2021 season. It was the first season of football in about 20 years where I haven't watched one game from beginning to end. because I can't stand the fake cheers.
I'm with you. I've watched very little football this year, except I watched the playoffs. I don't think I watched one regular season game all year, Eric. Not even the Cowboys. Well, the Cowboys were disastrous this year, so I didn't watch them. But
I had to watch bits and pieces just to see how it looked. How
yeah,
bad
but the playoffs have been really good. The playoffs have been really good. I tuned back in for the playoffs. And I've been pleasantly surprised. But yeah, here's what's so dumb. And I mean, I don't want to get on my soapbox, but the one thing they tell us about COVID is you're supposed to be distanced and wear a mask. What better place is there to do that than a giant football stadium? Let 5,000 people into a 100,000 person stadium. They can all distance. I don't get why they didn't let people go to football games. It doesn't make any sense. They could have distanced
because they can't make money off the concessions.
Well, that's okay. It makes sense.
Where listen. The guys working the concessions make minimum wage or close to it, and they're selling peanuts for like $12 a bag. Jesus Christ! Okay,
yeah. And Jerry Jones is taking $11.50 of that $12. I'm sure. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
You know, hey, Robert F wants to know if anybody has the Necro Games Wilderlands box set. It was awesome.
It's really great.
It is amazing. It is. If you want to sell a kidney to buy it on the secondhand market, feel free. It is expensive on a secondhand market.
Yeah, it's really good too. It's not. I mean, the great thing about Wonderland stuff is you can easily convert it to another edition. I mean, it's 3.5, but a lot of it's not really stats. But it's really good. What's sad? The sad part about it is with all the problems that we've had with Judges Guild over the past year or so, it'll probably never be reprinted. So, which is, I know Frog God has no plans to ever have anything to do with it again. So, but yeah, if you have a chance to pick that up for a decent price, I would definitely do it.
Yeah. No, John Miller is like, well, it's a massive product. How do you prep for it? Yes, you prep for the area that your party is going to start in. And if you're running it as a sandbox, and actually Mike and I could probably do a whole episode on talking sandbox in the Sandbox podcast. But the secret to running an effective sandbox is you give your party options and you prep for each of those options, but you don't have to necessarily prep a lot for. If they go totally off the rails, you know what? Then they have to accept for the fact that you're going to tell them to take a 10-minute break and go to the potty or smoke as you spend 10 minutes figuring out what the fuck to do.
You know, we should have a sandbox show because I have some really great sandbox advice that I've used over the years that I've got that I've done because I can. There are ways because a lot of people won't do sandboxes because they say there's too much preparation. It's kind of like a magician. Magicians do card tricks and they do what's called forcing a card, and which means that even though you think you have a choice, you don't really have a choice.
Right.
They're gonna the same thing with sandboxes. You give your players the illusion of choice. Yes, they have a choice, but you prepare, like Eric said, you prepare 2 or 3 different things. So no matter where they go, you can slip in your little adventure or your little side trek, or or your little encounter in there. I've had some of the best adventures I've ever run. Is me as a DM and having the players go off the rails. They go, oh, we're gonna hex crawl. We're going over this hex here, and I throw in an adventure. They're like, that was the greatest adventure ever. Where'd you? I just thought about it. Thought it up on the spur of the moment. I had an idea that I would roll on a chart. Okay, it's going to be a mage lair, undead inside. I can go with that. I can do it. And I would.
You can over prep for this stuff, and over prepping leads to GM burnout. One of the best campaigns I ever ran, and I still think back longingly to it, was using the RuneQuest 2 rules. I had the hardback. I got the hardback Pavis box set and Big Rubble Pop box set at a convention at Columbia University. I think I was 19 at the time. I got them all for $20. The box sets had some water damage, but the contents were perfect.
Boy, Big Rubble is that is a great supplement.
Pavis and Big Rubble, I ran that for a summer as an open sandbox. It was amazing. My players had a blast. The thing with a sandbox is, you generally speaking, in my opinion, always have a few go-to things. Have some encounters that and once you've used them, you put it to the side, and then you scratch the serial numbers off it so you can reuse it later. But you have to have things that you feel comfortable pulling up, that well, and your party, your players, have no idea that you had prepped for this, no matter which way they were going to go, in this type of situation. Wherever they go, it's forested. This is going to be one of my 2 encounters if they have an encounter because I know it well. There's so many ways. Like it isn't so much. There's some aspect of giving false choices, but
I'm not saying make your characters do something they don't want to do. I'm just saying is that you have some encounters you can basically fit in almost everywhere. And like I said, like I was talking about, like you just say, okay, you roll on a chart, okay, undead, wizard's tower, something. So I have a counter. I have a undead wizard's tower. I can boom pop that in. We're ready to roll. Or
right.
Or you can be good at thinking on your feet, which helps too. But yeah. But yeah, that's the way. We'll have we'll have a sandbox show one of these days when we have no guests.
Definitely, no.
Because I've got some great material. There's some great products out there. Richard LeBlanc's company put out some great stuff.
The D30 GMs.
Yeah, I'll bring a pile of stuff and I'll show people what I use for sandboxes when I'm running a sandbox. There's some great material out there. Some great hex crawl stuff.
John Miller says it's a shame that Judges Guild will no longer be publishing much. Here's the secret about Judges Guild. They haven't published shit in years, really. Anything that's come out has been licensed. They have not been putting stuff out. So only problem is now, anything that they license is pretty much, it's not the Midas touch. It's the touch of death. And nobody really wants to touch it.
Nobody wants to touch it, yeah.
The IP right now is terminal for anybody who wants it. And it's a shame because a lot of the IP is good. A lot of the IP is shit. But a lot of the IP
the good stuff's really good. It sucks because, Janelle Jaquays wrote some of the best Judges Guild stuff. Well, now she's disavowed having anything to do with them. So I don't know if she'll get the rights back. I don't think she'll get the rights back to her stuff, which sucks. And Frog God, we're not doing any more. We did Teagle Manor. That's the last thing we're going to do. We're not touching any Judges Guild stuff anymore. And no reputable company will. There's not a reputable company out there that's going to touch anything having to Judges Guild anymore until, Bob apologizes, which fat chance of that, or he sells the property. I mean, I guess he could sell the property, and he doesn't appear to be wanting to do that either. So it's really sad. I mean, there is some good stuff in there, and I mean, Rob Conley had the beautiful maps for that proper. I mean, I think you can still get the Rob Conley maps, can't you?
Yes, you can.
Yeah. Those are worth looking up. He did a great job on those. It just sucks because it's really nostalgic and just cool stuff. And we're never going to see City State. We're never going to probably never see Janelle stuff reprinted. I mean, it bites. The whole thing terrible. I would grab Epi. I would because we're not reprinting it. Once we have sold everything we have, that's it. We'll never reprint Teagle Manor, and it's really good. The Frog God, I worked on it. It was a labor of love. It's a very good version of Teagle Manor. It's the ultimate version of Teagle Manor. It's taking everything that was published before and sifting through it all, and even including the third edition version that never came out. Bob Sr. died before it came out. Gabber Lux wrote a lot of that. Gabber Lux is an excellent writer. If you've ever read any of Gabber's stuff, it includes the original stuff. I mean, it has a little bit of everything. Bill wrote some stuff in there. Tom Wilson wrote some stuff. It's just great. It's the ultimate funhouse dungeon. It really is. Where one room might have 3 ghouls in it, the next room might have a giant demon jumping out of a mirror, rip your face off, and next room has a bunch of giant rats. I mean, it's classic. And there's all the portraits on the walls, and some of the portraits will turn you to stone. Some will give you a treasure. I mean, just crazy stuff. The Goodman Games History of Judges Guild Part 2 is going to focus almost exclusively on Janelle Jaquays because she does own the rights to anything that was in Dungeoneer magazine, which includes at least 3 dungeons, Felderak's Tomb, Night of the Walking Wet, and there's one Borshak's Lair. She does own the rights to those. and she does own the rights to all the material in the first 6 issues of Dungeoneer. So his history of Volume 2, the history of Dungeoneer, will focus almost exclusively on Janelle's contributions, which were considerable. I mean, let's face it, Janelle at age 18 or 21 was writing the best stuff that Judges Guild ever published.
Oh,
you know,
God, yeah.
Caverns of Thracia and Book of
the
Treasure
art.
Maps and Dark Tower.
A complete package.
Yep.
I mean, and here's the thing too. Now we're talking about Goodman Games. Goodman is also doing, and again, I don't play 5e, but the 5e products I will pick up are the reprints and enhancements of the classic adventures. I have the B1, B2.
Oh yeah, those are great. I haven't bought the last couple. I don't have the Lost City or the last 2. I don't think I have, but yeah, those are excellent.
I got to double check which one they have. Now here's the secret, folks. If you're going to purchase these, and I'm not saying don't give your money to Goodman directly, but again, this is part of it. Remember, if you want to support the publisher, yes, buy from them directly because they make the most money off of those direct purchases. But if you are saying, hey, I got like 3 of these I want to pick up and spending $50 a book, holy shit. Well, you know what? Amazon often has them for as low as like 30, 35. I know. True. Dare I say Amazon. Amazon, which has really done very well for themselves during the pandemic. Yes. And listen, there are times when I make decisions based upon, hey, I got extra money in my pocket. I can afford to put extra money in the publisher's pockets because I want to support them. And there are other times where I go, my funds are limited. And look, I've got $150 in Amazon gift certificates. I might go on a Goodman Games classic reprints shopping spree. Which reminds me, I probably fucking should since I still have my Christmas one. But I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that is where, if you have to stretch your gaming dollar and you don't have a friendly local game store, that's the way to do it. Now, mentioning friendly local game stores. Those of you like myself used to go down to Complete Strategist about once a season in Midtown Manhattan. Well, it's on 33rd Street, right? So it's borderline Midtown, downtown. But I think orders over $50 ship free. So if you look up Complete Strategist and you want to support a local game store and you're a New Yorker, a good way to do it is to go to the Complete Strategist website and place an order. I believe it's either $50 or $75. If you're a gamer, you hit that quickly.
As we talked about in a past show, it's been estimated up to 20% of game stores went out of business last year, and most of the ones are still not out of the woods yet. It's a low margin industry. It really is. So yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, the shakedown that's here and that's coming it's not going to be pretty. We're going to lose a lot of local game stores. We lost a lot of comic shops, a lot of mom and pops. A lot of mom and pops look, Amazon didn't get any poorer because of the COVID. A lot of those other, Netflix is doing just fine. A lot of the big boys are doing great. It's the mom and pops that got hammered.
Well, here's what I've heard. I've read numbers somewhere around 30% or nearly 1 in 3 stores. We're not talking chains. We're talking privately owned stores or small local in the U.S. have shuttered in the last 10 months because of COVID.
Sure.
Now remember, the margins at these stores are very small, especially your hobby stores. They are not large margins. Anybody who thinks you're making, a killing working in the hobby, on any level, you're not.
No.
But they've been suffering. But before I forget, there's a throwback. Sorry, Greg, I'm going to call you out here. These sandbox tricks sound like a quantum ogre problem.
We're going to do a sandbox episode. I've got an answer for that.
We have an answer for that.
I have an answer for that.
A sandbox episode. And Greg, I love you. Fuck you. You are a future guest. All right, but don't stir shit now. Not when I'm on my second glass of carb-free wine, motherfuckers.
Well,
Free wine.
I invited my old granddad again this week. Ooh, we're getting low.
Well,
Getting low, guys. Oh,
hard liquor isn't bad if you
no.
type 2 diabetes. But yes, David, I'm totally waiting for Goodman Games and the Temple of Elemental Evil. Temple of Elemental Evil T1 to 4, as it sticks out in my head, is the only. I used to call that a campaign in one book because I ran it 3 times with 2.5 different groups. One group was a smorgasbord of players who hadn't played it with me prior, and it is awesome because I always had a lot of fun with it, and I had a lot of fun with the different factions. It's one of those adventures where they actually took the time to tell you when your players leave and come back, things will change.
Here's what happens,
Things
right?
will happen.
Yeah.
It's nice that somebody could set that into print. Actually, for the time, that was a big thing because usually most of your adventures were based upon tournament adventures. This one wasn't. So it played differently. It played like it was meant to be running.
Well, plus it also, we never really know what Gary had planned for it because he lost interest, and Frank had to finish it for him. So what we see, T1 through 4, T1 is Gary because that was Gary's original campaign there. T2 through 4, whatever came to the temple, that's mostly Frank, because Gary had a brief outline. He had business in Hollywood and he'd have time to finish writing it. And plus, from what people have told me, he lost interest. It wasn't something that he was interested in continuing. And so most of what you see is Frank. And my one problem with T1 through 4, if I had a problem with it, is that I know that Frank has talked about this before. He really wanted to expand the elemental nodes at the bottom because there's a node for each elemental property. Right. Actually, I thought that was a really boring ending to the adventure. Is that you get to this, you're at the bottom level. What do you? I don't care. I wanted to fight some big bad. That's what you want to fight with the big bottom. You don't want to go, okay, we're going to go to the elemental node of Earth. I mean,
that was kind of cheap. I usually just hand wave that shit.
Yeah, that was my. So I remember the one time I ran it, I did have an encounter at the end, which was the introduction to Night Below box set because I ran them together. But yeah, it's still a classic module. And for those of you who grew up during the time, the worst part of T1 through 4 was T1 came out, I want to say in 1979, 1980. T1 through 4 did not come out until 1985. So when T1 first came out, we ran it. We're like, okay, man, can't wait for T2. It's going to be awesome. And we waited in 1981, 82, 83, so right. Rarely did you have a group that sat around and waited for T1, T2 through 4. That was probably the biggest bite of all, is that it didn't all come out at once or didn't come out as it was planned, a separate module, T1, T2.
I never owned Hamlet until I returned to gaming as a separate adventure. When I found it, like, oh, well, this is awesome how they put it all together. Strange I couldn't find these individual adventures like I could for,
T1 Village of Hamlet is probably, if you had to look at every D&D adventure published, that's probably the most perfect example of a first edition adventure because you have a village, you have an adventure, the moat house, you have an underlying plot, you have NPCs, this has everything. It's a place to base your adventures, but it's also, it's a stepping off point for something bigger. You don't have to have anything else. You don't have to have, what comes later in the Temple of Elemental Evil. We'd have T1 and we'd stick it in our middle of our campaign. That would just be the village that you base your adventure out of. And then you'd go from there and you go to whatever adventure the DM had planned nearby. I knew so many people that used T1 as their basically their basic village setting. That everybody ran a campaign that had the end of the welcome winch. That was just the thing that you did. So
that's with me. It was Halls of Evening Star, Evening Star.
Halls of Evening Star.
Yeah.
I was like that too. That was a good second edition adventure. Yeah. That was T1 through T1, and also T1 has. The great thing about T1 too is it was an actual campaign that was run, and there's still some you can see, like for instance, Elmo the Ranger was I want to say Ernie's character. So it's very historical because a lot of the characters in Rufus and the other guy, the two guys running that are building the tower outside town, those were players in Gary's campaign. So it's got a lot of historical background into it. It's just a really cool little adventure when you look at everything you put into it and just the whole setting of it, just the whole history of it. I mean, the druid, that was Tim Cass' character, Drew the druid. That was Tim Cass. I mean, it's just got a lot of history, and and plus, it's just very iconic. The moat house is iconic. Lareth the Beautiful. I mean, there's so many names you can pull out of there that just are just so iconic. But we'll have a show about that sometime. We'll talk about iconic. We'll have our favorite 3 modules. We'll have a show about that too sometime. Although T1 honestly might not make it, but I still think it's an amazing adventure. But it may not make one of my 3 favorites. Although I do like it a lot.
I think for me, the adventures that stick out in your mind are the iconic ones, like G1 through 3. I can't remember.
I've ran that so many times. I've run that so many times because look, adventures, giants. I mean, who doesn't want to do that? That's fun as hell. You're in a room. There's 18 frost giants. Let's kick some ass, man. It's a great that's an iconic series too, just because of the situations in there.
Yeah, D1, D2, and D3, Q1. Those were a lot harder to run than the G series. The G series was, once you got to the drow, you were just like, oh my god, the moving parts.
Because they were teaching you something. Because the first adventures that came out from TSR were detailed. They would say, okay, here, this room's this. When you get to the D series, they don't detail things. They detail some encounters, but they mostly just tell you, look, here's this giant sandbox. It's basically a hex crawl underground. And so the one issue I have with it is they didn't teach you how to run that. Because a lot of things with early TSR, it was assumed you would learn this by playing with experienced dungeon masters. But if you're like me and you were from Texas in the 70s and nobody else played D&D, you didn't have that background of learning. You didn't know what to do. You got D1, D2, and D3. You're like, what am I supposed to do here? This is just an outline of things. So you had to do that. And so yeah, I mean, those are really great adventures, but those were definitely for the more experienced dungeon master.
Yeah, that was rough.
Yeah.
Now, Shadzar brings up something interesting. Nobody knows I ever talked about N4.
I've run it. I've run it
multiple times.
It's a great adventure for.
But it requires your players to accept a different frame of mind, because it introduces zero level characters,
right,
in a way. And basically, your actions will have an effect on what class you're going to be, which is kind of like what DCC does, right?
Yep. I ran it the one time I remember running it to begin a campaign. All the different characters were on a ship, and I think the way it's originally written, you're slaves. I didn't play it like that. I played that you were just passengers on a ship. The ship crashes on an island, and then you have to get off the island, and that's how I ran it. It worked perfectly because that also explains why so many weird different characters are all thrown in together. Because most of the time, look, we have a hard time explaining why this party contains a barbarian, 2 clerics, a druid, an elven mage thief, and a dwarven fighter. There's no logical explanation. But the great thing about a treasure hunt was it gave you an explanation. It said that you were on a ship and you're all on a ship and the ship crashes and you just, hey, by the way, my name's Bob. How you doing? Oh, I'm fine. Let's get off the beach. Our ship just crashed. We need to go find, shelter.
Mike, cover me for 10 seconds.
10 seconds. No. So that Tom Brady. Well, no, I'm just kidding. But you know what? We do need to have a sandbox show, and we do need to have a iconic adventure show because
yes, we do.
Even though everybody here is pretty much pretty experienced with the old school stuff, it's always great to learn about things that you don't already know about. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I'm sure our listeners can have live input and give us some ideas. Now, somebody's asking, what's Let's Get Kraken? What's the comment about the Kraken? Well, here's the thing about the Kraken.
Oh, okay.
And this is interesting. because those of you who have been following the blog side of this, tenkarstavern.com, over the last, I don't know how many years I've been doing this, I follow fucked up Kickstarters, wayward Kickstarter scams, and I'm flipping through my YouTube, and one of my suggested YouTube videos comes up about a YouTube scam, not a YouTube, a Kickstarter scam. So I'm like, what the fuck is this? And lo and behold, there is a Shadow of the Kraken, which, by the way, is finally suspended as of about 4 hours ago, which is the clone. I'm calling it a clone. It doesn't mean it's a legitimate clone. It's the clone of an Indiegogo, which is another crowdfunding platform. Now, the individual in question on Indiegogo was Vinny Tartamella. So you look at the Kickstarter side of this, and it's an exact same repeat of what's on Indiegogo, including the same video without the fact that it says funding on Indiegogo at the end. And you go, okay, who owns this account? Oh, well, look, it says Vinny, first created, zero back. Hi, I'm Vinny, yada, yada, yada. And then it goes to the actual name of the individual, if you've ever checked this out on Kickstarter. Sergey Rentsenov. I'm like, well, that's interesting. Where is Sergey? Almaty, Kazakhstan. Nowhere in the United States that the Indiegogo says that. So I'm like, okay. So now you look, and again, I do my own research. I don't just go by the YouTube video. I got to look into this. And it's about a comic book. The art looks fucking amazing. I'm tempted to go back to Indiegogo and back it just for the awesome artwork. And it's pirate themed. I love that shit. So the body and the of text and the art on the Kickstarter is exactly the same as the Indiegogo, except for one small part. And that small part is the risks and challenges section. And why do I say it? Because Indiegogo doesn't have that section. So that means the individual had to write it themselves. Now, I am not going to mock anybody's ability with the written word of English because they're not a native speaker. However, if the rest of your Kickstarter page looks perfect because you were copying a Native American speaker and then you get this, that should be a really big what the fuck, right? Risks and challenges. I will do my best to start production of my comics book on time. However, it's life, and I can't guarantee that those who bake for it will receive it on mentioned time. If you will not revise the physical copy, I promise to deliver it you under any condition or make a full refund of funds. All right. Now, could that sound like somebody from Kazakhstan? You might, Rabbit. You might. But it's certainly not Vinny, otherwise known as Sergey in this case. So the guy on YouTube made a complaint to Kickstarter and got the automated Kickstarter response of, oh, we thank you for your concern and thank you for your input. And if you have any further questions, feel free to contact us, yada, yada, yada. So then I made a complaint, which basically I made a blog post about this. So I basically copied and pasted the serious parts of my blog post because I do certain parts that I'm mocking and figure that might not go over well with Kickstarter because they love it so much. And sent that. And then other people, apparently having read my post, also sent. And then finally decided, oh, let's take it down. Now let me let you into a little secret about Kickstarter. Okay. They didn't take this down because, oh my God, people are going to get scammed out of money. There was no way this was going to fucking fund. All right. It raised $150 of a $9,555 goal. It wasn't going to fund, but that's not the point. Okay. They only made the effort to take it down once there were enough potential customers seeing a problem with it. Kickstarter doesn't really, in my opinion, give a fuck about bogus Kickstarters, so long as they don't fund, it doesn't affect Kickstarter. Why take an action to take it down? Nobody's going to lose money in the first place. And if it does fund, guess what? Kickstarter makes money off it, and they're not responsible for fulfilling a project. I backed the last Kickstarter that failed, and I will admit, this was me about a year ago, before I had all my health problems, and I guess my health problem probably sneaking up on me because I didn't do my usual due diligence. I was a fucking asshole, and I went, "Oh wow, that was a really cool leather jacket. Look, I can get like a leather jacket, trench coat leather jacket, good for a raincoat, it's weatherproof. I'll back it." Well, you know what? It was a Chinese company. Doesn't mean you got to see where things are funding. China has a lot, just like Nigeria is the country that sends out a lot of these. You have won $4,800,000 in our American lottery. Please send to Prime Minister your personal information, including Social Security, mother's maiden name, date of birth. No. I should have been suspicious. I wasn't. And this Kickstarter raised like, I don't know, $80,000 and walked off with it all. And they were giving good updates, like, it's shipped to the and then once it's supposed to start shipping, they fucking did the dip. So going back to certain, like, why do companies use Kickstarter? Because it is, again, free marketing. You're paying for nothing for this bandwidth except for a percentage of sales. So it's no money up front. It is amazing the reach that Kickstarter has. Here, I'm going to give you Alexa ranking for Kickstarter. Kickstarter ranks 692 worldwide as for web traffic. You can't. There is no way in hell you're coming close to that any other way if you want to get your products known, if you have any kind of reach. Okay? And there's a reason why when it comes to new creators on Kickstarter, people get very wary. I will back a project from Goodman Games, Frog God Games, people like Phil Reed. Holy shit, I'll back any. Yeah. I don't even play the stuff that Phil Reed sometimes puts out, but I back it because I'm getting an amazing value. And that's something else I can touch on at some other point. But when you back from a company that has no track record, first produced, none backed, you know what? You're gambling money. And I hate to say that because Kickstarter and Indiegogo are great tools. But you can look at people like James fucking Raggy and say, wow, the Lamentations of the Flame Princess ref book. Your community saved your fucking ass last summer, James, in the midst of COVID. And because you had these outstanding government debts that were coming due. And we have no fucking update on the ref book. Now, why is that? Because James already has the money. And I'm not saying that James will never produce it. And I'm not saying that people like Gareth Sharka are innately bad people. But there is a thing when it comes to individuals, not necessarily publishers, because publishers, Frog God Games has a large number of partners / owners that all of them have the reputation on the line if something goes south. Goodman Games is so large that it isn't just Joe Goodman investing in a product. But when you have individual people investing in a product, like you're saying, I'm investing $49,500 for Gareth Sharka to put out Far West. I know when Far West funded, it funded in December of, I guess, 2001. Month after I got married to my lovely wife, Rach. We're now entering 2021. It's no closer to being fulfilled. Why is that? Because the money's already been fucking spent. Because it's an individual.
Sure.
Okay. It's not every Kickstarter has people like Benoit and Ernie Gygax that take the money that they raise in that Kickstarter and they put it in a business savings account and say, we're not touching it except for business-related expenses. Other people go, and here I am making assumptions, but in the case of Gareth, it's a pretty good one when he was asked for refunds and said he didn't have the money, it means the money's been spent. What has it been spent on? It probably, making an assumption here, maybe it makes an ass out of you, me, Tom, Dick, and Harry. Fuck it, I don't give a shit. But it probably went into a personal account and got mixed up with personal funds. And when expenses like medical expenses come up, or you get laid off from your job, that money gets tapped, and all of a sudden that money is gone. Because let's be honest, all right? There's a reason why we say don't lend money to friends. Why is that? Because once you lend money to a friend, and this is talking in general, first off, it's awkward to ask for the money back. But once that money gets spent, a lot of times lent money then becomes that negative of, well, but that's a negative $400 in my pocket if I pay it back, or when I pay it back, and it gets pushed off. When that money is spent on a project or from a project that isn't on a project, that money is effectively gone. So will Far West ever come out, I think, without having a savior? I sincerely doubt it. I think that Gareth, again, talking out of my ass, I don't have inside knowledge, but since Gareth hasn't updated the fucking Kickstarter in a year and a half, says the only updates will be on his Far West forum, which you can't fucking register for. So fuck you, Gareth. That's not talking out of my ass. That's fact. I suspect it's string you along and hope that the community forgets that they owe their order product.
Look, it's interesting. So, I mean, what you said can't be undersold. Nobody, and I mean nobody, does what Ernie and Benoit did, which was basically no. I mean, that's what's so amazing about that project, and it's just amazing that it got completed. What the reason it got completed was they still had the money. Nobody has the money. Usually after 2 years, that money has been mingled with personal funds and is long gone. I mean, Raggy doesn't have that money in an account somewhere. Gareth doesn't have that money. I mean, nobody has that. No. Nobody does it. So that was absolutely amazing. They were able to have the foresight to put that money in an account and just keep it safe from, from being predated on or whatever, just taken away from. And that's why we were able to finally see, because I had a lot of people tell me, people that I trust in the industry that I think are very intelligent, said there's no way that Memorial Tomb will ever come out. But once I knew the money was still there, I said, there's a chance. The money's there. Right. The money's still there.
And I give Ernie a lot of credit. My first GaryCon, Ernie searched me out and said, Eric, I need to talk with you. And I was like, and Ernie is one of those people at a convention who has his own entourage. Okay, it's like, holy shit, people are following him like he's royalty. And he goes, I want to. I go, me? Yeah, you. All right. And Ernie and I had talked online. We, Rach and I had given advice for some of his health issues because Rach is a social worker and has some insight. And Ernie's like, listen, I have something I want to show you. I'm like, what? He goes, I want to show you a bank statement. I go, why are you showing me a bank statement? He goes, because you need to see it. Because if you see it and you know it's there, then others in our community will know it's legit. And he showed me a bank statement. It was about 2 months old at the time, which is nothing. And it had close to $100,000 in it. And he goes, we've had expenditures on the project, but the bulk of the money is still there. He goes, I'm not living wealthy. I'm living pretty much month to month. He goes,
that was the biggest thing I heard was people were telling me, well, that money's all gone. I'm like, I don't know. And then once you told me that, I'm like, no, the money's not gone. If the money's not gone, this has a chance. Because I had people tell me they swore that money's gone. That money's all gone. Like,
I heard the same shit too. And I heard a lot. Listen, I've heard a lot of people who I respect otherwise in the hobby badmouth Benoit and Ernie. And I'm going to tell you personally, I think Benoit and Ernie, their mistake was they bit off more than two men could realistically handle in this project. It was a huge, it spawned with stretch goals to a huge project. But the reason why the guys from Trolls, the Troll Lords, could step up and say, we can white knight this project because it's costing them time. It's costing them man hours, but it's not costing them cash to save it.
Sure.
The cash to get this project completed was there because of smart thinking on the part of Benoit and Ernie. If they hadn't done that, if they had intermingled it with personal cash, Yeah, it would have been fucking gone, and it would never have been completed. Why do you think City State, the Invincible Overlord, is so fucked up? Because that money was never put in a separate account, and that money, apparently, nobody who could figure out math sat behind that Kickstarter and said, "We're offering miniatures for how much? How much did they actually cost?" And am I a penis for doing this? Well, yes, you are. Not everybody can be, I don't know, a Zach Glazer and do a box set with miniatures and know the math down to the cent and make sure, not making a huge profit off it, but make sure they're not in the red on the project. That I have so much utmost respect for Zach, not just doing it once, doing it twice.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, man, that is such an amazing thing. So, and personally, with the exception of people like, well, Ken Whitman, who goes into things like that with the idea of I'm going to pull a fucking scam, allegedly. Even as much as I get annoyed at Gareth for avoiding all this shit, I don't think he went into this with bad intentions. I think he went into this with great intentions. I thought he was like, what's going to be a moneymaker? And I think he bit off more than he could chew. And I think that he suffers from, I think he's admitted depression. So he had mental and emotional challenges that were facing him, and he was overwhelmed. And he can't come out and just say it. I would actually rather him say, "Full of the sword," do a Mike Neistel and say, "I'm a fucking bad businessman. I fucking suck, and nobody should ever back one of my projects again because I should never have done this, and it's my fault." But he can't do that. And the reason why he can't do that is he wants to still be a viable name in the industry. So you can't admit that you're a failure when you're still trying to pull a paycheck from other companies. You can't admit that. So
right.
I ranted.
You wanted.
I ranted.
But that's it's. I mean, Kickstarters are something that's very near and dear to your heart, especially bad Kickstarters. So but it's things have changed a lot in the Kickstarter world. It used to be a lot easier to get a lousy Kickstarter rolling, and we've become much more cynical now, and we demand a lot more. We demand that hopefully, I mean, when I look at Kickstarters now, if they haven't already finished the manuscript, I just go on. I don't even consider something where they haven't finished it yet, because that's the new gotta have. I mean, if you haven't finished it yet, the ones that say, "Well, I'm going to start writing this as soon as I get the money," I just scroll on by. Not even interested, unless it's somebody that I know really, really, really well, and they have a track record, like maybe Lloyd Metcalf or somebody.
Right.
But yeah, if you haven't, look, you can't have a wing and a prayer anymore. You got to have work done. You got to have art done. You have to have writing done. You have to have we demand a lot more Kickstarter now, which is good. But there's no way there can still be bad Kickstarters. It is a funding platform that relies on you trusting the person who comes out with it. And that's why they say, Kickstarter lets you know right up front, look, if this doesn't come out, tough luck, buddy. There's nothing we can do about it, really.
I mean, there's a reason. I've had people ask me, "Why are you going to participate in Zine Quest?" By the way, Zine Quest is coming up, I think, in February on Kickstarter. Zine Quest 3. There'll be a lot of RPG zines, OSR zines. I'll cover them. We might actually bring in Mike and I, maybe some people that are kickstarting stuff for that. But here's the deal. I am not going to do a Kickstarter because I know myself. I know that I am not going to be able to stick to a schedule. I'm going to be fucking late. And I don't consider, on most Kickstarters, if you're 3 months late, you're pretty much on time.
Uh-huh.
And if you're 6 months late, you're a little late. I don't want to be the asshole that points out fucked up Kickstarters and then produces a fucked up Kickstarter.
Right.
I am not that. I have a wish to self-inflict damage sometimes, but my wish is not that strong. I'd like to avoid that. And that's just me. It's rough though. Kickstarter, it's a boon and a curse, and if you can make it work for you and your company. And here's another point that I'm going to go back on something that Shanaz had said earlier, that A lot of times these PDFs are overpriced because there's no overhead, there's no cost to print. And you know what? I'm not disagreeing. However, there is a cost involved in Kickstarter, and that's producing the product in question. And if you sell your PDF so too cheap, then nobody's going to want to buy the print. That being said, and again, I can argue both sides of this, and I probably have at some point. You look at somebody and go, all right. So how exactly are they doing these Kickstarters at $1 a piece? Phil Reed, how the fuck do you do a Kickstarter at $1? And that's just one PDF. You'll get 9 PDFs for like a fucking $1. But then he has like 10,000 backers, right?
Right.
And yes, he's learned a way to change the math in his favor. And here's a secret that people don't touch upon. You have 9,000 backers for your $1 PDFs. Well, guess what? You have a mailing list now of 9,000 backers for your $5 project.
Right.
People forget that. If you haven't seen the effect of what a mailing list is from Kickstarter, back a Kickstarter from Troll Lord Games. Because I did back a lot in the beginning. And holy shit, I'd be like, I've got 17 messages in my email from fucking Troll Lord Games about that latest Kickstarter. But these lists are important. It's the same reason why companies, smart companies, put stuff on Humble Bundle. And you're saying, well, they're giving away all these PDFs for $1, $8, $15. How can they be making money off it? Well, you know what? There's that money of pure numbers. $15 times 20,000 people is $300,000. Yes, you're making money off it. But not only that, you got 20,000 people who made a purchase. You got 20,000 people on your mailing list. Mm-hmm. You got 20,000, and especially in Humble Bundle, usually what's given away. They usually give away a coupon, right? Worth 20% off, 25% off. Your print products. Holy crap, I got to buy print now. But now you're getting a future customer. Humble Bundle is great for the publisher, and it's great for the consumer on so many levels. And it's great for charities, too. Yeah. And it's great for people like me with the affiliate links. I did enough on Humble Bundle that I actually got a 1099 for last year. I was like, fuck. I don't like 1099. I like to keep it under $600.
You're kidding. Jeez.
I was like, son of a bitch. So, this bastards, I tell you, Mike, you can't do anything with them. All right.
Well, we got anything else to cover this week? I think we
think
we hit on all our high spots as usual.
We hit on all our high spots. I can close out that. No, we got one more. I think the Eye and Hand of Vecna. We kind of.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, you roll. Yeah, you roll with that.
There's a pre-order available over on dndmini.com, and it's the Hand and Eye of Vecna. Now, I was a 1E DM. I will admit that when my players start hitting name level, back in the early to mid 80s when I was in my late teens, did I give away artifacts? I gave them away, not like they were candy, but kind of like they were higher end Godiva chocolates, which you could still acquire. It wasn't out of the end. And the Eye and Hand of Vecna the Hand of Vecna was certainly one of them. I got rid of the Hand of Vecna, by the way, using Tomb of Horrors, one of the Spheres of Annihilation. They reached the hand in, and I removed the Hand of Vecna. Like, you can't destroy an artifact that way. I never said it was destroyed. It transported somewhere else. In any case, you can own your own Hand and Eye of Vecna.
Of course you can.
Kid you fucking not. Perfect for a spot of honor in your game room or on display in your store. Now you can add both relics to your illustrious collection. The Bloodshot Golden Green Eye measures 1.5 inches and perches between the fingers of its companion hand. Conversely, the Shriveled Mummified Hand measures about 7.5 inches in length and nests in an for all to see upon a red swath of satin in a bell jar display case. The wooden display case measures 7 inches, while the glass cover stands about 10.5 inches in height. It gives you the eye of Vecna, the hand of Vecna. With
Well, how
display
much?
platform.
Well, what's the price point on these?
Supported support piece display satin cloth, glass dome, forearm mirror, $129.99. Still cheaper than a box fucking set of Savage Pathfinder.
Once again, this is what I was saying earlier. These are your high end guides. You gotta cater to your high end customers. They're the ones footing the bill for this stuff. Jeez.
Yeah, and now here's the thing. I really, how can I put this? If I could find a way for Rage to say, yes, you can have that and display it, I would probably get it. I don't think I would be allowed to display it. However, I may be able to negotiate putting up maybe like a Lost Lands shower curtain instead by saying, hey, I didn't get the hand of Vecna. Okay,
come on, throw me a bone here. Yeah,
I was going to hand of Vecna, put it on display on the Dutch shelf. I was going to take down one of my beer steins and put it on the Dutch shelf above us here in this wonderful room. But because I felt about your sensitivities about having a mummified hand holding a fucking dead eye, figured it'd be bad for the marriage. I said maybe I should withhold that. Now, I want to put up a Lost Lands shower curtain in the shower. Is that okay?
Well, yeah, I mean, you definitely could do that. I mean, that's not seen by any.
Hopefully
very many visitors. But yeah, when you have the hand of a victim, unless you have a game store or like a gaming room or something, I don't know what you're going to do with that. I mean, I ended up buying it. I would buy it. I'd throw it in the corner. Just look at all this crap I got as it is. I mean, I'd throw it in a corner somewhere and never pull it out. I'm like, oh, okay, I'd be finding it 10 years later, like, oh, look, there's a hand of Vecna in a box somewhere.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, but now it's pre-order, so you can damn well be sure that they might have enough to cover initial pre-orders, but they're not going to put in their full manufacturing numbers until they have a better idea how these pre-orders are going. They don't want to overstock it. So in a way, yes, it's like a Kickstarter. It's like a crowdfunding. They're getting an idea of what their potential customer base is.
Sure.
So they're not stuck with this shit being sold on Wish.com for actually, you know what? You could probably buy it on Wish.com later on. The hand and eye of Vecna. There's somebody
a couple letters, yeah.
I've seen so many videos of cell phones and tablets that have been purchased on Wish, and oh my god, they break the shit down. They open it up. Oh, it says it has 3 cameras in the back. The 2 are dummy cameras and 1's real. That 512 gigabyte drive is really 12 gigabyte. That's like, oh my fucking god. But yes, is it tempting? On some level, yes, it is, but not tempting. The Lost Lands shower curtain is on Redbubble. Does Zach know that? Do you guys...
I think we do. Yes, I think that is a.
All right.
Yes, we are selling those on Redbubble. Yes, we are.
All right, I might have to get that. I mean that would be. I have Bargegate. Don't get me wrong. I was sent home with Bargegate one con, where the idea was, we got too many of these to keep on looking back and forth. Take one. And I'm like, Rach, she's like, don't even think about hanging in the shower.
I think I have one somewhere.
Because we only have 1 bathroom. She goes, if we have 2 bathrooms, if we ever move to a place with 2 bathrooms, you may place that in one of the bathrooms that nobody uses. Okay. Fuck.
Oh. Well, we don't have any showers anymore. We have shower stalls now in all our bathrooms. So my wife redecorated all the bathrooms. So I no longer have anywhere to put Lost Lands. I may just have to hang it on the wall. That's probably where it needs to be anyways. Hang it on.
Oh, I could.
There you go. Yeah, hang it maybe on the wall.
You know what? I got 2 walls that could probably fit it too. Trouble. You are a troublemaker.
You always have walls. Come on, man. Walls are there.
Yeah, but I got 2 of my walls. I have 3 of them. 3 of my walls have shit on them. Shit. Fuck. I got bookcases everywhere. This is in our quote sitting room.
You can't have books. You can't have books and Lost Lands shower curtains.
No, I can't. Well, the one bookcase that was made for paperbacks, which used to be filled with paperbacks until I decided I wasn't going to reread my Forgotten Realms paperbacks. Took up half the bookcase. Holy shit! I had way too much of it. That's another episode we could probably do at one point, delving deep into that shit.
Oh yeah,
the fiction that we used to read back in the day.
Okay,
James Thomas. We talked about a Kraken already. I don't know if you're gonna see us. Let's get Kraken, but we talked about the Kraken issues. Boris Vallejo art shower curtains. Why is that not a thing? The reason why it's not a thing is depending on the Boris Vallejo art. You might have a problem in the shower. I'm just saying it could be an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, then your wife might be asking you why you
taking a lot of showers, man.
Yeah,
you're so clean.
You take 1 5-minute shower every morning. Now you're taking 2 20-minute showers twice a day. I really like the soap you bought. Jesus. See now we're getting off the we're going off the sandbox. We're going.
We hex crawled all the way past the hex crawl.
Yeah, we're going into.
We hex crawled out of the hex crawl.
We're going to Ravenloft right now. We're going. Well, actually,
Realm of Horror, definitely.
Yeah, didn't Castles and Crusades do their own Ravenloft?
Yes, they did. It was written by Jim Ward. It was called something, and it's must be really rare now because I remember the box set coming out. I never remember. I don't think I've seen one in 10 years. I don't know when it came out, but
I saw it and I was like, "This is Ravenloft."
It's something lands. Yeah, it was something lands on Hallowed Lands.
Dagon is right. Dagon is Rising.
Dagon is Rising. What's Dagon is Rising? Is that a game?
The name of the box set?
No, that wasn't the box set. That was
no, it was. It was Tainted
Lands. That was it. Tainted Lands.
Yes.
I've got it sitting somewhere.
Bad name for it.
Ooh, I've got it sitting somewhere. But yeah, it was a Ravenloft type thing for CNC.
I will say one thing that I do miss. I miss the Crusader magazine. I miss any semi-regular role-playing game magazine, even for systems that I didn't play. As flawed as Gygax magazine was, and it was fucking flawed. Don't get me wrong. I think the idea behind it was great. I think the people behind it were great.
It looked great. It looked good, too.
It was trying to be too many things for too many game systems, and it suffered from a lack of focus. But I miss even getting that in the mail or at the game store. And there hasn't been anything that really has replaced it, which is just a damn shame. So... see what happens. Now I get morbid and morose when I get into my third glass.
All right, let's wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up before I start crying in my wine, like a real fanboy. I can't believe what they did to my toast. Folks, if you are listening live or you're listening to this on YouTube later, please do us a heavy. Subscribe to the channel. If you want to get this channel more support and more listeners, subscriptions and likes, the feedback we've gotten as this has been going on has been awesome. Ian, you might be a bit older than us, but my son says he's an old soul. I don't know. I think I might be older than my 53 years in a lot of ways. But listen, if you want to support us, subscribe to the channel on YouTube. If you're listening on Facebook, hop over to YouTube, youtube.com/Eric Tenkar. Subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you can understand. It gets us into the searches. The more views we get, simply the better content you're going to get in the long run. Because more live listeners is just more damn fun. So, on that note, we're in the midst of the world of COVID. Neither Mike nor I are medical professionals. We make no aspirations or illusions as such. But I ask that you use your common sense. It's the best weapon you have against COVID. And if you need professional medical advice, seek it from your medical professionals that you know and trust. I'm assuming that most of you have a general practitioner, an internist, a family doctor, a nurse in the family. Seek their advice out. On that note, be safe, be well, God bless. Roll those dice. I will be back tomorrow. I will be back on Friday with Joe the Lawyer, I believe around 9 o'clock Eastern. But we will send out a notification. If you're subscribed to the channel, you'll get those notifications. And Joe is always a fun for the live stream. All right, folks. Oh, next month in February, we're going to be live 4 nights in a fucking row.
Yeah.
For
yeah.
And we're going to cause troubles. We always cause troubles.
We will.
Because nobody causes troubles like we cause troubles. All right, folks. On that note, we're out of here. Good night.
Later.